Mic check 1 2 1 2. It's the Y2K collector. And what is FOMO? Well, it's technically the fear of missing out. That's what a lot of people feel when they think that they're not going to get an opportunity to have something that everyone else wants. And as it relates to video games, well, FOMO is something that we've seen have a tremendous impact on the retro gaming community. And it's something that someone recently asked me to talk about. And these are my thoughts on FOMO. FOMO happens in the gaming community a few times a year, and it's caused by a number of things. Right now, one of the most recent cases of FOMO that I can think of is what's happened since the Sonic the Hedgehog movie came out, where once that movie came out, all things Sonic suddenly became really expensive. And I kind of want to take that back because it's not all things Sonic, but it seems like certain Sonic games, certain retro Sonic games shot up in price. Now, not so much the original Sega Sonic games, which you would think that those would shoot up in price. Oddly enough, it was the Sonic Adventure 2 Battle, which shot up crazy for the GameCube, as well as Sonic Adventure 2 for the Dreamcast. That also shot up. Now, I'm thinking that it shot up because obviously this is one of the games that has both Knuckles and Shadow in the game. And you don't see Shadow, I think, in the original Sonic games. And I think that's the biggest part of the reason why these games shot up in price. And so it had everyone wanting to get all things Sonic, especially things that were related to Shadow the Hedgehog. And I think that's why these games shot up in price. But we also saw this happen once the Wolverine and Deadpool movie came out. So once Wolverine and Deadpool came out, these two games that were normal, $29.99. I think at one point Wolverine was like $27.99. Games that were once $27, $28. Now these games shot all the way up to $70, $80, $90, $100. At one point, X-Men Wolverine's origin was $100. It's come back down to earth now. I think it's probably in the $50 range or so. Deadpool on the Xbox 360 is back down to earth, but this is not the most expensive version of the game. Probably the most expensive version of Deadpool is the PlayStation 4 version of Deadpool. But both these games also were major victims, I guess I would say, of FOMO, right? Then you have Fist of the North Star, Ken's Rage 2. Now, there was a little bit more validity to the FOMO that we saw with this game, primarily because this is the only North American physical release of this game. And once they shut the 360 store down, if you didn't have it already downloaded to your console, there really wasn't any other way of playing this game. So I kind of understand some of the FOMO with Fist of the North Star because you're actually missing out on this game. And once they close the 360 store, it is limited. But, still, it's FOMO, right? Fear of missing out. Now, in my opinion, you never miss the things that you don't know are there. What do I mean? Is that a lot of the times the people who deal with FOMO and go through FOMO and are victims of FOMO and spend extraordinary amounts of money on FOMO games, those are the people that are usually looking for either the next big wave to ride on. So they're not people who collect out of genuine desire to buy certain games. They're people who are constantly looking for the next trend. They're usually people who are looking for the next wave. And they're the people who are typically buying games to be able to brag or say, oh, I got a copy of that. I got a copy of this. And it's rarely do I see FOMO video game buyers buy because they're genuinely into the game. Now, during the GameCube FOMO era, where everyone was buying GameCube, I was buying import Sega Saturn games. And no one was really looking for these games at the time. And I don't think anyone is looking for import Sega Saturn games. No one cares about these games. But me, I've always been a fan of shoot 'em ups. And I purposely bought that Sega Saturn you see in the corner so that I'd be able to play some of my favorite shoot 'em ups on the Sega Saturn. And so while the GameCube craze was going on, I picked up games like Batsugan, a really cool arcade style top down shoot 'em up or cave shoot 'em up. I was picking up games like Radiant Silvergun, a classic, probably top 5 shoot 'em ups of all time that I have in my collection. This one got a release on the Nintendo Switch through limited run, if I'm not mistaken. And another really cool game that not a lot of people know about, Metal Black. Metal Black is old school. It actually has some pretty old school graphics, but it is a very fun shoot 'em up game. And these are all import shooters that no one was really caring about at the time. No one really cared about these. Some of these have always been expensive, like Radiant Silvergun has always been an expensive game. They've always been expensive because they are more on the rare side, but I'm a fan of shoot 'em ups. Anyone who follows the channel, you know that's shoot 'em ups and beat 'em ups are my thing. And I'm the type of person that I usually like to buy stuff when no one else is paying attention to them. Like when no one else cares about them and they're going down in value and, you know, people's awareness isn't on them. Which is why, like last year, I spent so much time buying NES games. Now, it's not to say that no one cares about NES games. People care about NES games. I think people care about, like, people will always care about third and fourth generation games. Those will always be games that people seek after. But they weren't like the hot item. The hot items last year were like the 360. GameCube is always really, you know, at the top of people's minds. You know, I remember a couple of years ago, the real hot thing was like the Wii U. Everyone was really buying up the Wii U games, you know, and then you've got your typical stuff like your N64 and, you know, the Switch is always a big popular one. But for me, whenever people were chasing down a lot of like the popular things, I was going for stuff like import Sega Saturn games. I was building up my PSP collection because those are games that no one really cares about. No one's really looking for the PSP, the Vita, right? These are things that like I go after, and I focus my attention back to these aspects of my collection whenever I feel like people are really riding a wave. And I think really what drives FOMO, to be quite honest with you, is just trying to be down, trying to be cool, trying to have all the things that you think other people want instead of getting the things that you want. Now, don't get me wrong. There are times where I hear about a game releasing that I know I'm going to like, and I might buy the game, you know, so that I don't have to worry about paying a lot for it later on down the line because I know a lot of people are going to buy it. And that's probably happened to me more so with like Switch games than anything else. And that's usually when a game is first being released, whether it be by like limited run or super rare. I have not done any retro FOMO buying like ever. And you still see people doing it. You see people doing the whole, like the little piglets adventure thing. That was a very common thing going on for a while. Everyone was chasing down little piglet and that game shot up in price. But I mean, why would you buy that game? Unless you were really into like Piglet like that, I don't see why anyone would buy that game. But you do have people who, like I said, they're FOMO buyers. They want to be down. They want to be cool. They go and they buy those games. So to me, I think, again, FOMO is something that people who don't really have their own gaming identity, their own collecting identity, they don't really know what they like to collect. They just collect everything. To me, those are the people who are most susceptible to FOMO purchases and FOMO buying. But when you have like a taste, when you're curating your collection, you're not just buying games just to buy them. You don't have to worry about FOMO as much because even if the game you're buying is a game that everyone's going after, you know internally, like you're not buying it because everyone's buying it. You're buying it because it's a game that you actually like. It's a game you want. It's a game that you'll play. So, but here's the thing. Do I think FOMO will continue in 2025? No. I think people will try and continue to hype games up. I think within the gaming community, people will continue to try and hype games up. People will continue to try to push certain things, but I just don't think people have the money, the time, the patience, the energy to do the FOMO buying anymore. I'll be quite honest with you. And the only people who are going to be doing that are going to be YouTubers, um, people who go to game conventions, resellers. They're really the only ones who are going to drive that stuff. Um, I would say maybe some collectors, like certain collectors might do that. But for the most part, I think people are over that stuff. But I mean, FOMO buying in general, that does not happen to people who know what they like, know what they want, and buy what they want. But you guys let me know. Do you think FOMO buying is still a thing in 2025? Do you think people are still FOMO buying around? Let me know. I'm not saying that people aren't. I can't see it being as big as it was 3 or 4 years ago. That's the main thing. People might still be doing it, but not on the same level. Those are my thoughts. Let me know what you think. I'll catch you in the next video. It's the Y2K Collector. Take it easy.